This week we have two Parshas, the Parsha of Acharei and the Parsha of Kedoshim. In Acharei, the Torah gives a very detailed account of what exactly the Kohen Gadol, the high priest, did on Yom Kippur. He had to go into the Holy of Holies, he had to immerse himself in a mikvah many times, he had to bring various sacrifices, and it's a very complicated service. Especially troubling, though, about what the Kohen Gadol had to do during the service is that upon completion of the Yom Kippur service, the Kohen Gadol had to immerse himself in a mikvah. Now, normally, the purpose of going to a mikvah is to increase one's holiness, one's kedusha, to elevate one's spiritual plane. That's the reason why a person would go to a mikvah. In modern times, the reason why a person goes to mikvah is because he becomes spiritually contaminated for whatever reason. Or if one wants to elevate one's holiness before a holiday and so on, or Shabbos, that's the reason why people would go to a mikvah, or would go now to a mikvah. Think about conversion. When a person undergoes a conversion, he has to immerse themselves in a mikvah because they are elevating their spiritual state. Now, the Kohen Gadol, obviously, because of this, the most holy service of the year, had to immerse himself in the mikvah many times. But the curious thing is that when he left, when he completed the Yom Kippur service, he again immersed himself. What's the reason why a person would immerse himself upon completion of a holy task? We find a similar idea. The Gemara talks about the Hasidim HaRishayim, the pious men of early times, that they used to, the process of davening, of prayer, took them 3 hours. Because they had an hour to prepare themselves for davening, they were getting themselves in the right state of mind. Then it took them an hour to actually pray, and then there was an hour afterwards where there was like a detox period, where they were going back to regular life, and for some reason they needed an hour to transfer from the prayer mode back to the regular everyday life mode. So what does this mean? How do we understand, first of all, the Kohen Gadol having to immerse himself upon completion of the Yom Kippur service? And how do we understand the reason why it took these Hasidim HaRishayim, the pious men of early times, an hour to detox from davening? What were they doing? So the answer is that we all go through days where prayer and mitzvahs that we do, and when we do them, we feel a strong tether to God. We feel that emotional impact. We feel that psychological impact of what we're doing, of the value of what we're doing. And because of that, we do it with gusto and with feeling, and we're very careful with it. And then all of a sudden, things change. Darkness descends, and a person feels like, why am I doing this? I don't feel it. I don't feel that connection. I've been cut off. And because of that, the Yetzer Hara, the evil inclination, entices us to say, well, since it doesn't feel like anything to me, I'm not feeling it, quote unquote, therefore I'm going to abandon this activity or this prayer or so on. So the key is to always remember how to pull those moments of inspiration, those hours of inspiration through the dark times. And that is what the Kohen Gadol on Yom Kippur was doing by immersing himself in the mikveh upon completing the Yom Kippur service. That is the reason why the pious men of early times went through a detox of an hour after prayer. It was because they were trying to bring themselves back slowly to everyday life, and not to let that moment of inspiration just extinguish in a moment's time. This slowly coming up to the surface after being underneath the waters, the holy waters, so to say, metaphorically, is the way a person can bring those moments of inspiration, those moments of emotional attachment, and take them throughout his everyday life. When a person experiences those moments, a person should try to overcome the evil inclinations, claim that now that it's not emotionally impactful, that we should abandon our ways. Because during those times, even though it may be one of the hardest times, that's the hardest time to fulfill God's will. The Sfas Emes even says that People think that sacrificing one's life is the hardest thing you could do for Hashem. But in truth, he said, the hardest thing you could do is to be a consistent servant of Hashem, whether it be where you feel the emotional connection, whether you don't feel it in the times of light and in the times of darkness. Have a good Shabbos.